So when it comes to developing effective action plans, it turns findings into actionable steps. For example, so here we are, a security manager, and we have an audit, right? So the audit findings show that we actually have some HIPAA issues. So in this case, a finding under HIPAA regulations might indicate insufficient access controls. So the remediation plan should implement things like role-based access control, conduct training sessions, and then also verify and validate changes. So that's very important. Once we actually implement the fix, we need to verify that it was implemented correctly, and then validate that it actually is addressing the issue. It's actually fixing the problem. Once all this is in place, regular reviews ensure the progress remains on track. So each task should have a clear owner, a timeline, and what is our success criteria. There are a multitude of tools that can support audit remediation. So here's an example of a Kanban board, and these things exist in tools like Jira or other ones that are out there. Some are free, some are paid. And again, you could use a whiteboard with sticky notes if you wanted to, although I would recommend using a software package as it automates and makes things much easier to track, to report against, and so forth. But as an example, let's just show how this works. So when we create a task, we put it in our backlog. It is assigned a number, in this case 24-159. We have all the details of that task included. So you can actually click on this. It drills down and gives you all of the relevant information, the history of it, what actions have been taken, so on and so forth. But in this case, it's currently sitting in the backlog waiting for someone to pick it up. So one of our developers or IT staff, security staff, depending upon the situation, they'll go in, they'll pick that task up. They'll move it to in progress and assign it to themselves, or perhaps a manager, you as a security manager, may assign that to a specific person. They'll start to work on that task, and then once they're completed, it goes into review. A second set of eyes look at that to validate and verify, make sure it's okay, and then it gets moved over to done. Now this is just one task. We'll have many people working on many different tasks, and these things will go back and forth. But the automation tools allow you to look at a glance at what's being worked on, what's done. If things are on hold, that means there's some type of blocker that's there, and we can remediate those issues. Or if it's not going to be worked on, we looked at it and says, okay, there's a blocker here, but we can't do anything with it for X amount of time. You may move it to the backlog. Point is, it gives you an at-a-glance view, and then you can report against these things. You can show volume of work, the consistency of work, how many times you have to rework the same issue, things along those lines. So repeat findings in subsequent audits can often indicate poor governance, which draws increased regulatory scrutiny and also erodes client trust. So it's important that we act upon the findings and take care of them quickly. So let's dig a bit deeper and talk about the 5 whys method. So it's a simple yet powerful problem-solving method designed to identify the actual root cause of an issue. So here we have a security manager wanting to dig down to the root of some issue. Well, by repeatedly asking why to each answer, we dig deeper into the problem's origins. So this reminds me of my kids when they were little. Like most children, they constantly ask why, which really makes sense as part of the reason why they learn so quickly, because they naturally just drill down to understand something, not just how something happened, but why it happened. So typically it takes about 5 iterations to uncover the root cause, though of course this can vary depending upon the situation and upon complexity. But let's actually look at an example of 5 whys in an audit finding. So in this example, an audit finding shows that sensitive customer data is not securely encrypted during transmission, which violates GDPR requirements. So, security manager is asking, why? Why is this the issue? Well, sensitive customer data is not securely encrypted during transmission because the application uses outdated TLS 1.0 encryption. Well, why? Well, the development team hasn't upgraded to TLS 1.3. Well, why? Well, because there's no clear process for identifying and addressing outdated protocols. And as you might guess, why? Well, IT governance policy doesn't include a regular review of encryption standards. Well, why? Well, the organization lacks a dedicated policy review framework to ensure compliance with evolving standards. So now we've actually gotten down to the root cause of the issue. So once the root cause is identified, it's important to fix not only the issue at hand, but again, identify that root cause so the same issue doesn't pop up over and over again down the road. So in this case, no governance framework was established to monitor evolving standards. So once TLS 1.4 comes out, or whatever the next iteration might be, we'll potentially be facing the same issue again, being non-compliant because things weren't updated. So with the root cause identified, we can create a remediation plan, which might include the following: establishing an IT governance framework that includes periodic reviews of encryption protocols. Then increase our training, right? And train the development team on compliance. And then implementing an automated tool to monitor those standards. And again, this then has a broader context. It wouldn't apply just to TLS or encryption issues, but that same framework could be used to address any type of evolving standard. So it will allow us to strengthen the overall security posture and the compliance posture of the organization. So let's talk about some monitoring tools. Real-time monitoring is really a key pillar of audit readiness, especially in dynamic environments where the threat landscape shifts daily. So tools like Qualys or Tenable, Rapid7, Nessus, OpenVAS, they can all identify system weaknesses, track them, and prioritize patching efforts. So let's take a look at this. We have our vulnerability scanner. As I said, it could be Qualys, Tenable, or some other solution, not recommending one over the other. But all of these tools can go out and scan different areas of our environment, network, applications, databases, and so forth. And from there, they can then produce real-time dashboards that show the health of our systems. So by integrating these scans with our ticketing systems, like ServiceNow or Jira, we can create automated workflows that flags vulnerabilities and assigns them to the right team. So it ensures that things don't fall through the cracks. So whether you're a global conglomerate or a mid-sized firm, the principle remains the same. Consistent vulnerability scanning underpins continuous compliance. Much like when you see a spider build a web and the spider is continuously monitoring that web. As soon as something touches it and it gets a small ripple, they're aware of it and they jump right on top of it. Same thing here. If we're continuously monitoring our environment, as soon as something goes astray, we become aware, we launch an automated process, log a ticket, open up a specific application, remediate that issue as quickly as possible, or at least track it for compliance purposes.